All right, here we are. Welcome to everyone joining us for the first time, and welcome back, Augustonians. Thank you for joining us a week early, as per usual in November and December. We want to make room for everyone to enjoy their holidays, time off work, special moments with family and friends, or hopefully having time to rest and unwind. We're also dedicating this session to Bell Hooks, who has gone very recently into ancestorhood. And we're also going to dedicate it to Gregory Tate, a great American writer who has provided some of our most brilliant takes on Blackness and culture and vitality. We are sorry to lose such great minds. And I just, wanted to make space for this to say that before we begin. I also want to go ahead and wish everyone an early Happy New Year. We won't be seeing each other again until January 28th, when we will be live and in person with Ashley Ford to discuss her 2021 Runaway Success publication, Somebody's Daughter. So don't look for us on Facebook. Look for us in person at the August Wilson African American Cultural Center on January 28th of the new year. And I also want to take a moment to thank everyone who was featured on Lit Friday in 2021. We receive endless knowledge and joy from Black artists and thinkers sharing their work. Our conversations are always geared towards growth, learning, and validation of our community. So again, thank you so much for spending your hours with us. And as well, thank you to Crystal Joseph for joining us again. If our viewers remember, Crystal was with us in December of 2020 with Rowana Abensetz, the founder of Spoken Black Girl magazine that focuses on Black women's mental wellness, and Lucretia Holcomb, a writer, therapist, and mental health specialist. Crystal is back to join us about a discussion about how to maintain our mental health during the holidays. While we experience wonderful connections, some of us are also alone. Some of us also have to work. And a lot of us have that one auntie, cousin, brother, uncle, or even mother that poses a challenge for us. And we want to get into some strategies for making the best of what we have to work with. Crystal is a licensed clinical professional counselor, approved clinical supervisor, licensed professional counselor in Virginia, the author of Conversation with a Clinician of Color, Likeness, Lucy, and Lemonade, a first-person research commentary, and Pound Cake in Private Practice, 5 Things I Learned During My First Year, a colorful, unadulterated book which delves into building a private practice from scratch. She received a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology and Black Studies from the College of William and Mary, and a Master of Arts in Counseling Psychology from the Chicago School of Professional Psychology and on the Washington, D.C. campus. She also owns Psych Your Mind, a thriving private practice in the DC metropolitan area, where she holds space with persons affected by mental health challenges on the oncology continuum and have had culturally traumatic experiences. Psych Your Mind is in its 3rd year of training up-and-coming therapists through its robust internship and residency program. And in our last event we had with Crystal, there was like a very deep discussion about how hard it is for Black clinicians and clinicians of color to actually find internships and residency programs that aren't toxic for them. And so that's huge work that Crystal is doing through Psych Your Mind. When not in session, you can find Crystal cooking with cast iron or curating her shoe collection. She resides in the DC metropolitan area with her supportive husband. Can I get that on Amazon? You can visit her website at psychyourmind.com for more information about her and her practice. She is also on social media. On Instagram, she's at @thereal_psych, PSYC, your mind. And then she's on Twitter at psych, PSYC, your mind, and Facebook at facebook.com/psych, PSYC, your mind. Thank you. I follow her because I love her content. It's always very informative and very cute. Rising star we have here. There's an up and coming new, public, Black public woman mental health figure.
Yes.
All the way.
You.
Thank you for joining us again and sharing your expertise. I'm sure that there are plenty of people who feel like they need it right now.
Yeah, no, thank you guys for having me back. It is a privilege and an honor. I cannot believe a year has passed since we've last met. And unfortunately, we're kind of in the same place environmentally. So, just coming to touch base with you guys, provide some options, different ways to think about things, and also just to hold space with you as we continue to put one foot in front of the other.
Exactly. That's all you can do sometimes, right? It's like baby steps and not jumps.
No. Because sometimes you don't know what you're jumping into. Yeah. Gotta take your
Exactly.
time.
But I feel like that's a feeling, right? That's a feeling that's been general this year. Like I keep seeing on Twitter and also in personal conversations that people feel that things are strange, right? The
Yes.
moment is unprecedented in a way that we can't collectively speak to because of our limitations with talking about racism, misogyny and misogynoir, and
Yes.
also our inability to kind of talk about, the underbelly of like capitalism and what that requires as far as being productive. There are these major collective situations that we're all bound by that kind of like a hyper individualism keeps us from having a real discussion about. So things just seem tight and strange.
Yes, very much so. And I'm glad you brought up the bounds of capitalism and productivity and what's seemingly required of us. And I definitely will touch base on that a little bit, as we get further along into the hour.
Yes. Exciting. So you have a presentation that you want to share with us?
I do, just to keep us, or me rather, I tend to be kind of go off to the left sometimes. So reel me back in.
About your shoe collection.
Yes.
We can do a short MTV Cribs about the shoe collection. That's therapeutic.
But feel free to jump in, and if there are questions, if the audience has the capability to ask, feel free to pause and ask questions. I'm definitely here to help. So I am going to share my screen and get to present. There we go. So can everyone see the presentation and me?
I can see. If I can see, hopefully you all can see on Facebook that are watching via Facebook.
Okay. So I just entitled this Deck the Halls with Boundaries and Mental Health Strategies. It's that time of the year. Some things that I've noticed with regards to this time of the year is Halloween sets off the prime time of therapeutic nature. So myself and my colleagues consider October 31st through the end of February our peak time. And a lot of that is due to the holidays, but also to memorials and loss and grief, losing loved ones, and the lack of sunlight as attributed to seasonal affective disorder. Go ahead and combine global warming with COVID-19, with Delta, Omicron, all those variants, and now this is where we are today. So I briefly wanted to kind of touch base with you guys. How are you doing? Really, how are you doing? Boundaries across the holidays, and get into a metaphorical representation of what type of fence do you have. And then, of course, as a therapist, leaving you all with some resources and tidbits on work-life balance and new norms.
So could you explain the fence metaphor a little bit more?
Sure.
Like a larger kind of metaphoric idea.
Sure. No, may I do it after it's
of course.
No worries. it's after this slide. So I just wanted to ask. I can't see you guys. I'm sorry, but how are you doing? A lot of times people ask this question in the grocery store, they ask this question in passing down the hallway, you put it in your team's chats. I definitely ask it every day, all day, to those I hold space for and with. And what I've noticed is we tend to respond with, "Oh, I'm okay. I'm good. I'm fine." Blah. You get at all of that. And I wonder is it because you don't feel the person who posed the query genuinely cares. And so you give the short answer and not the real answer because the other person either doesn't have the time to hear you out all the way, you're distrusting, or maybe you really don't know how you feel. So if we don't know the answer to what we're feeling at the moment, we aren't able to identify what we fully need to thrive. And I think this is so important within our internal representation of who we are and who we see when we look in the mirror, but also how we present ourselves to our loved ones. And then, of course, how we present ourselves outside to the world. And we can't model that behavior of how to receive what we need if we don't know how to qualify and quantify what we feel and then what we need. So I would encourage you all to use these words instead of good, okay, and so, some type of way, I'm appreciative, I feel violated, I'm agitated that you would do such a thing, or create your own. When I did group therapy, continuous group therapy, I remember being in group and there was a feelings chart off to the wall. And I remember a couple of weeks in a session with the same cohort of people, a woman came in and she made up her own word phrase of how she was feeling. And we loved it. So we started to keep dry erase sheets next to the original feelings chart so people could document their own codification and description of how they were feeling and receive feedback from the group. And it was just nice to see people be creative in that way and allow the autonomy and the agency be felt in the room and not feel like someone else gets to qualify and quantify how you feel. So I think that's also important as Black and Brown people, that a lot of times we're named. Our name, our feeling, our emotion is stripped from us and we're named by something else. So when you call it, when you name it, it provides and reinforces who you are and what the meaning is. Okay, so this is a German term. I do not speak German, so please forgive me if I mispronounce it. But it's Weltschmerz. That's as close as I can get it. Okay, so this word derives, it means world, Welt or Welt is world, and Schmerz is pain. And so it's world weariness. So it's a little bit different from clinical depression, and it's a little bit different from just overall blahness. But it is a word that describes a level of discontentment and overall sadness about life. And a lot of people have expressed or exuded this feeling as it relates to being 2 years into a pandemic and saying goodbye to norms, saying goodbye to lipstick, masked up, facial expressions are missing, saying goodbye to community, and a level of isolation that we're all experiencing. So I did want to just drop that etymology with you there. Okay, so boundaries across holidays. So Jessica, here is the fence, the fence metaphor. Okay, so you walk into holiday dinner, happy hour, family, and you're inundated with questions and comments. Why don't you leave that job? Oh, you'll get over it. Your auntie sent you some unhelpful article on your text on your phone 2 days prior before you got there, and now you have to look at her in her face. Raisins in the potato salad, we don't do that where I come from. Where's my gift? When I was your age, I was. And so, I'm curious, what's your response and how do you respond? And a response isn't always verbal. It can be you having an exit strategy. It can be you having a buffer with bringing a partner or a significant other or a friend with you, so you can kind of create bounds around what is said and what is not said, where you can control the conversation. But I want to empower you to kind of give some feedback and say, hey, I appreciate your concern, but at this time, my choices are off limits. I hear what you're saying. Maybe that is how you feel, but that is not my take on the situation. And this also can work with regards to disagreements or confrontations that aren't as friendly, so to speak. With the aunt that sent the text message, you could reply with how you wish to be helped. A lot of times we project how we would love to be helped onto other people and our loved ones without ever asking them how do you want to be helped, or how do you wish to be helped at this time? And so for the person who says, where is my gift? Wherever your tact is. So I'm teasing, but evaluate the situation and where you are and who you're with and you're speaking to. And also find that a lot of times when we enter these situations, it's like alpha order reestablishes itself, even if you are an adult child. And so kind of creating these boundaries and exercising them and working on them helps show the elders that, hey, I have arrived to a certain threshold of respect and autonomy that I wish to have and gain. And I also will provide this respect and autonomy toward you, but please respect my boundaries. And so I think that's really important, in our communities, that we continue to practice this and honor that is someone's choice or that is someone's opinion, without it being considered, oh, well, you're just being disrespectful. Well, I have had thoughts in this temperament since I was 5, and so I just want to encourage you guys with that, because I see a lot of people shamed and guilted into doing things. Filial piety is the word phrase that's used to describe that, with regard to honoring family before honoring self. And I think at a certain point you have to honor yourself and just say that, and it's not selfish to do so, nor is it disrespectful. So the boundaries are like fences. So as you can see in this little short clip of a video, this fence seemingly around this house, it's brick and it has no gating, so it's just open. So they can be like a picket fence, a brick fence, stone fence, wrought iron, which is typically what you see around, well, I'm in the DC metropolitan area, so you see those around like government buildings. They're really, really high, you have the cameras. If you were to try to scale it or get over it, it'd be quite difficult without getting hurt, because there's nothing to kind of bear your weight down against. And also know that they come in different heights, so they can be 3 feet or 12 feet. And notice that this one is wide open, the mailman or whomever can come through. So they're locked or open for visitors. And so something that I tell people is, you have to decide what type of boundary you have with what type of person. And so your fence is going to vary with the type of people or the company that you keep. So the next door neighbor, they may have more of a stone 6-foot fence because, I'll let you borrow some sugar and I'll check your mail for you while you're on vacation, but I don't really know you. So I'm going to keep this boundary like this and not share too much and leave it at that. Whereas the picket fence might be your childhood best friend that they can hop over every time or anytime they want to, with regards to how they converse with you, what they say to you, how they address you, maybe call you out to call you in, type thing, where you don't want to hear what they have to say, but they're right. And then the wrought iron could truly be for extreme protection, say those who have experienced some level of trauma, where you can see through it, but you can't really get to the grounds on the other side. There's cameras, it might be electrified. And then I also tease with, some of my clients that you always have that pesky squirrel or the dog or the cat that gets in and leaves excrement or eats your rose bushes or something. So you're gonna have points of the fence, no matter what it is, where something else can get in and possibly aggravate and or trigger you. And so that's the metaphor that I like to use. I think a lot of times people bring up boundaries and it's this very abstract, trending word, just like self-care was a couple years ago. And it's more to it than that. And it takes a lot of practice and emphasis, but it also varies depending on your audience. So I do want to reinforce that.
You have a message from Catherine Sutton. I just love you. I want you to be my therapist.
Oh, thank you. So I have a team. As Jessica mentioned, I'm in training up and coming therapists at an internship level as well as the residency level before they're clinically licensed. And the reason I chose to be an approved clinical supervisor in both Maryland and Virginia is because of my own experience, good, bad, and indifferent, but also help-seeking behaviors will increase up to 9%, per the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, through 2029. And also for you guys who are tuned into the news, as you know, CNN and others have dropped the report last year that the youth are experiencing a huge crisis when it comes to suicide, depression, and anxiety as it was reflective of the pandemic as well. And so that's had a huge hallmark on our burgeoning legacy. And so while I don't specialize in teens, I do have a healthy network of colleagues and friends that I also can refer people out to that just need something like that for their child or someone they're rearing, because it's so important to have the help in the safe space, and also to be proactive before something like just happens. Just because you come sit on my couch, you are not insane, you're not crazy. Don't let people coax you into that. You can pray, attend your place of worship, and sit on my couch at the same time. One does not negate the other, and one, just because you come to me doesn't mean that it's more powerful than whatever your beliefs or as far as prayer or your faith is concerned. So I do want to say that as well. Okay, so let me move. I'm sorry, you guys are slow. I want to make sure I get this right. So, indeed, much of the literature written about Black folks in the post-civil rights era emphasized the need for jobs. Material advancement was deemed the pressing agenda. Mental health concerns were not a high priority. And so that comes from Rock My Soul, 2003, from Bell Hooks. Mm-hmm. And I think this is so important because this book, I have it sitting on my desk at work. It captures a lot of the self-esteem of Black people. And she goes in and she dissects so many points of literature and historical composition about Blackness and what we were told to be and how to be throughout post-civil rights era. And something that I found intriguing with regards to this is Black women tend to your self-esteem tends to be tied to either how productive you can be. So can you multitask? You know, are you a domestic goddess? I can cook, I can clean, you know, Boosie, I don't smell like onion rings, like that whole thing. Okay, right. I can turn around, I can look like Barbie, I can do this, that, and the third. But when do you rest? And so rest is very, very important, and our ancestors didn't have the chance to do so. But also with regards to work and capitalistic society, you know, with the rent moratoriums and things that were going on, you find that, well, gosh, I have to go to work in a pandemic, even though I'm essential or non-essential, because I have to pay the rent, or I have to pay the mortgage, or I have to pay for the kids' school lunch, or I have to do this. And so you don't get a chance to either rest and or protect yourself and your family because you're forced into working and working and working. But who's checking on you? Who's checking on your mental health? Who's asking, how are you doing? Who's asking if you're okay? And so I have found that a lot of what newer clients are experiencing are what's called psychosocial stressors. Mm-hmm. And so Jessica and I were talking prior to us going live, and something that is interesting about the manual that I am asked to utilize when diagnosing clientele is the bulk of the book, or the beginning of the book, the chapters are diagnostic criteria, chapters, clinical diagnoses. So anxiety, I'll give you the full names: general anxiety disorder, all the way up through post-traumatic stress disorder, panic disorder, major depressive disorder, not otherwise specified, major depressive disorder with psychotic features. So you have those diagnoses. Toward the back of the book is where the psychosocial stressors are. Anything from your involvement with the criminal justice system, housing security, persecutory behavior and discrimination received in the workplace, subject to war-torn country, displaced and isolation due to natural disaster. All of those are in the back of the book and like ascribed over 3 or 4 pages. So if you're not paying attention and you sit where I sit, you can miss all of the major components of someone's life and lifestyle that is truly affecting them, that is causing their body to respond in one way, say gastritis, or you're manifesting mental and physical things in your body, but also the mental and the cognitive. And so the mind-body connection is very, very important. So the lack of social support is something that we've seen with the pandemic, and that's not by choice. That's because of mandates of, hey, we have to go on lockdown. Okay, we're going to go on phasing. Okay, no international travel. And for those who don't live clustered or compounded with their family, that has been very difficult. We've also seen the rise of interpersonal violence, domestic violence. During this time, home is not safe for everyone. So when I closed my office for 8 to 12 weeks last year, for the first 3 months of after March, the national declaration of the pandemic was made, I had clients who stopped therapy. And it honestly like scared me, because I was like, well, wait, don't you want to do virtual? Like we can get on the screen and we can work this out. And they were like, no. And it's because home is not safe for everyone, because what you need to say and or talk about is the person that's sitting over there behind you. And God forbid you don't want them to hear what you're saying. Or you have multiple generations living in a home, because the cost of living is sky high. And so there may be some privacy issues where, you might need to say that grandma upset you, but grandma's over there in the room making a cake. So I had to be mindful of that, and undergird and insulate my clients the best way I could, and give them assignments and coping skills that they could manage on their own and teach them prior to the office closing. So that was very difficult for me as a therapist. So isolation, working from home, I know everybody likes the fact that they can get up in 15 minutes, brush their teeth, make their coffee, their tea, and they plop down in front of their laptop and they can sign in for a meeting and keep their video off. However, that's highly isolating. There are no more good mornings. You don't see anything from pretty much waist down. You don't hear the copy machines. You don't hear the trains going by. I noticed people's social cues and communication skills are being depleted. And
they might not have been that good to begin with in general.
That's true. That's true. Some people don't like talking to other people. But it's just, it's not the best right now. And so while it's had its benefits and we've been able to prioritize family time and families, it can be very isolating, especially with regards to the unknowns and health and underlying conditions. And unfortunately, Black and Brown people have a lot of underlying conditions compared to some of our counterparts. Financial strains, so underemployment, unemployment, RIFs, so reduction in force, rent moratoriums, things ending, beginning, Congress not moving in the speed that you assume that they would. And so there's been a lot of financial strains on people, even down to, say, if you have a decent sized family. I remember I was in the grocery store last year, stood in line, 45-degree weather. I was the 20th person in line. I get in the grocery store and do my groceries. I get in line and this lady is on the next queue and the cashier's like, hey, you have too much meat. There's a limit on the meat. And she's like, I have a family of 8 people at home. And they were like, I'm sorry, it's not us. We just have to do our due diligence. And so they're, the disagreement, it gets heated. And so she turns around and she looks at my belt and I had frozen meat. And she was like, well, she has 4 packs. Why isn't she over the limit? And they were like, well, ma'am, it's no limit on frozen meat. And I said, that's what I've been doing. I've been packing it out, seasoning it and what have you. And she's like, oh gosh, I never thought about it like that. That's so smart. Thank you so much. So she got out of line, readjusted, I guess, the extra fresh meat that she had and got the frozen one instead. And so just kind of offering that ability to give someone another option and think about something differently. But also she was in fear that she wouldn't be able to feed her family, because limits on meat and supply chain demands are still not at baseline currently. And so that was just very difficult to see. So loss, there's loss as in metaphysical, death, people transitioning, as we just, learned this week, 2 weeks ago, we lost Virgil Abloh. We're a couple weeks shy beyond the year of losing Chadwick Boseman. So it's been a lot of loss, but also a loss of community. We are communal people. We get together, we laugh, we play games, we cook our food together, we eat together. We go to our place of worship together, we go to school together. And so there's been a lot of segmenting of that down to almost nothing. And so for anyone watching who possibly is not partnered, does not have a pet, or does not have any sort of family connection, I just want to say that, here for you, I sympathize. I have heard, stories of people not getting a hug from anyone in 13 months. And I mean, a hug, so I just, be grateful and count your blessings for what you do have access to. Even if it's the little things. And then loss of routine. I definitely am pretty bad at this. My days vary. Every day is different because of just how my schedule fluctuates. But once we were home, I was just discombobulated, out of sorts. And so I know a lot of people lost what their routine looked like because you're not really going anywhere. Me and the lady in Sephora last week were joking with each other because it's like, did you let yourself go? what's going on? The pandemic 19, we're less active now. And then in certain regions it's colder. So not everyone is willing to get up and walk the neighborhood, just to get moving. So I do encourage you, please try to get up and walk, at least bundle up if you have to.
I've also had several conversations with people about back issues, knee issues, ankle issues, because people are sitting in the same position at the computer. They're sitting, my habit is to sit Indian style on the floor. So all the pressure's on the lumbar, right? The lower back. And so hearing a lot of also physical health issues popping up from just being in one place and just trying to be comfortable, or laying that way on the couch all day long, because if you have the privilege to lay that way on the couch all day long, because of the different the different demands that are on us. It's like, well, today you stay home. Well, now you don't. Well, now you go. But I know at the beginning, everyone was just kind of in place, sheltered in place.
Yes, that is so true. And so, all of us, right? Let's say all of us, if you have the access and the privilege to have had medical physicians and other healthcare providers working on your behalf, say, for example, you lost 18 months, because how can you get a physical through a screen? At least, with my industry, you at least have access to mental health care if that's possible. But I too lost that. I had a couple of health issues flare up during this time, and it was just frustrating, super frustrating. And so you think gosh, if this weren't the case, I could have just had my normally scheduled appointments and we'd be fine. So definitely be careful, stretch yourself out. Yoga is really good. Acupuncture is great if you're willing to try it. And just, go for what even deep breathing, just to open up your capillaries and open up your breathway, and to get you grounded in the morning would be a great start to the day, even if it's seemingly mundane to you. And so, okay, so these are some screenshots from some of my favorite colleagues. So Josie Rosario is in New York City. She says rest has to be a non-negotiable part of your activism. Mm-hmm. So even though we have a lot of demands and, the dishes have to get done, the kids need their afternoon snack, I have a 5 p.m. impromptu meeting, XYZ, please know that rest is revolutionary. Dr. Joy of the creator of Therapy for Black Girls. She hails from Georgia. She's in Georgia. I don't know specifically if Atlanta metro region. But I do not have to be all things to everybody. And she's quoting a fellow colleague, Spirit, who also I believe is in the Georgia area. And you don't. Around the holidays, I know we get big on cooking these huge meals and hosting, and you have your crate and barrel and your market, your world market decor going.
Mm-hmm.
And make sure you stop and take care of yourself too, or ask for help or delegate.
And also, don't let anyone pressure you to do something you don't want to do. Don't let people pressure you to overeat until you just can't enjoy the fact that you ate it all.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let anybody pressure you to drink if you don't feel comfortable doing that. Don't let anybody, do your best to, try to, negotiate with people making comments about weight, the extra plate or not the extra plate. Like, I feel like these are things that, especially as Black women, that are always kind of in the back of our minds when we are kind of gathering together, because I think there's a way that it's just like, oh, well, we make the comments to everybody. It's just natural, right? And it's like, well, it doesn't have to be. If we can naturalize that, then we can make something else natural, right?
No, absolutely. If anything, just, just talk about the food, or talk about how cute their lipstick is or their hair or what have you. But weight and children are very sore topics for people. And also, you don't know what someone is dealing with. So they could be struggling with eating a certain amount of food, or keeping a certain amount of food down. Like, you don't know. And then there could be as far as reproductive challenges, and you just don't know. Or some people just don't want children, and that's okay too. So make sure you keep that in mind. And just, there's a lot of other things to talk about: student loans, global warming, the deer that just ran across the yard. There's a lot of things to talk about. Soko Ray, she goes by Your Favorite Therapist on IG. I believe she's in LA, Compton, Slauson. I'm not keen on South California area, but she's somewhere in that region. She says, if you are feeling exhausted, irritable, or destabilized lately, it's okay. We are currently immersed in the process of remaking our world. I think that was so poignant of her to say that. Old ways don't work anymore. This is not an easy process, and you are not alone. And so that is so important. You're not alone. We're here, even though people would have us to believe that we're isolated and we're by ourselves. You're not alone. And she's right. Old ways aren't going to work anymore. So there are going to be some remaking, some rehappening of what's necessary. So you might have to get a different set of tools out than what you're used to using. And also, change is not easy. And so with that being said, please try your best not to be frustrated with yourself. Grant yourself some grace as you kind of provide some flexibility around what has to be revamped. Melanin and mental health. Gosh, I want to say they're in Texas. This is a directory as well. So they say self-care also looks like creating a budget and sticking to it. And, Jessica was basically saying this, do you do the to-go plate? Do you not? Eating nutritious food, getting adequate sleep, 7 to 10 hours. I know we're team no sleep, blah, blah, blah. Please go to sleep, go to bed.
Exactly.
Go to bed. Getting regular exercise, and it doesn't mean you have to punish yourself in the gym, please. You don't have to be throwing barbells and steel and iron all the time. You can walk for 30 minutes, that's exercise. You can do yoga for 30 minutes, that's exercise. You can run after your 2-year-old up and down the stairs for 2 hours, that's exercise. Drinking enough water, and that varies person to person. And then going to therapy, and that could be going to your doctor's appointments, that could be going to the dentist that you might have a childhood fear of, all of the things. And then Healer Sister, so Shauna Murray Brown, she's in Baltimore, Maryland. I had the privilege of taking her decolonizing therapy for Black folk training. It's a 4-day training last summer, and phenomenal. But she says, if you slow down, you feel the answer in your heart, in your body. That's where the wisdom resides. So please listen. And when you do body work, and when you increase the hyphen between the mind-body connection, you'll soon start to realize what you need a lot faster than you probably used to prior to.
And that's a part of remaking your world too, because I think that, you know, the productivity part of our culture, having multiple streams of income, being underemployed in multiple jobs, or feeling like you must start your own business because social media makes it seem like the thing to do nowadays, is related to the belief that's slowly going away that our mind and our body are separate, and that our mind can control our body and push our body beyond safe limits.
Mm-hmm.
And because we used to think we used to more frequently, and now still kind of do think of our body and our mind as not connected or not conducting one another, that's the way we're remaking our world now. Now the situation that we're in is forcing us to see that they are connected, as our minds kind of start making our bodies do unexpected things or have unexpected responses that we never had before. And I think that that's changing our perspective. Like, a mind body is one thing. It's one thing. It's one connected, braided entity, and it's your body. And I think that's like the central part of this idea. Like, we're remaking our world because we have to respond to how we exist differently.
Mm-hmm. That is so true. And I think, you know, it's a phenomenal thought. It's like, gosh, you know, whoever thought we would live through something like this? And so I was thinking about my great grandmother this week. So we laid her to rest in May. She was 102. And she lived through, she lived through. So she was born the year of the Spanish flu pandemic of 1918, right? Mm-hmm. And then the other one that was in between, and then the Great Depression, both world wars, a host of presidents, all the things. All the things. And so I'm thinking, and we had a conversation. I was like, you know, Grandma, how are you feeling about, you know, this COVID thing? And she said, well, baby, you know, this is bad. She said, I've never seen anything quite like it. She said, but she said, it'll get better. And so, you know, having faith and, you know, that level of wisdom that she's watched a world for 102 years and could say, like, it'll get better. I was like, okay, that feels better, because there's so many unknowns, and you're constantly having to go back to the drawing board, or you're thinking that, well, they said this last week and now they're saying this week. And so, you know, be mindful of what you digest, not just food, not just liquid, but also where you're getting your news, what you're listening to on the radio, or even your friends say. And just, you know, take a break from social media if you need to. You can curate your timeline, block people, restrict people, mute people, whatever it is you have to do. My phone goes on Do Not Disturb at 11 p.m. I'm a bit of a night owl, but 11 p.m. and it doesn't pop back up until I think 8 a.m. However, my favorites, obviously my family, if there's an emergency, they can get in contact with me and the phone will ring and or beep or buzz at me. So I just, you know, want to make sure that's the case. So, you know, my final question to you guys is, like, do you feel supported by your family, friends, or workplace? And, you know, kind of revisit that. And if not, you know, ask for what you need. Say what you need. Now, there is a contingency that when people show you who they are, believe them. Yes. Sometimes all they can offer you is all that they have and all that they know at that time. And that, you know, that's okay too. So love them from where they are, and, you know, keep it moving. And then here are the resources as promised. So Therapy for Black Girls, and that's therapyforblackgirls.com. That's a directory for mental health. And just because it says girls, women, girls, some of the therapists listed, like myself, also see men. Therapy for Black Men, and it's therapyforblackmen.org. It's not .com. And so you get a lot of the male therapists that are up there. So male therapists are like the unicorn's unicorn. And so it's nice to see so many Black men in the profession holding space for their fellow brother, but also anyone that needs that type of service.
And don't worry, everyone, I'm taking screenshots. I'll append them to the post on Facebook so that way you guys can see it.
Yeah. And then Therapy That Liberates, that one is via Shauna Murray Brown's foundation, Kindred Wellness. The thing I like about Therapy That Liberates directory is the therapists listed there range anywhere from certain credential and educational background, but you also have Indigenous healers that are listed, Reiki healers that are listed, and I feel like more of a level, there's more of a focus on intersections and identity with this directory. Filters can still be used. You can filter down for like insurance, zip code, virtual versus in person, all of that. And then suicide crisis hotline, 1-800-273-8255 or talk. And then the last bullet actually is an agency in national, but the local, the national office is in DC. This is a domestic violence resource focused on Black women. And so they do a lot of, they have listening sessions, they have a lot of resources. Please sign up for the newsletter if you are in need. It's 844-77-85462. And it's Ujima. Oh, gosh, I'll send Jessica the actual URL for their web address because it's a lot longer than that. But they do a lot of great programming throughout the year. Anyone can participate and, get what they need. And so just some tips, ask for a phone consultation, shop around. There's nothing wrong with, say, scheduling with me. Then the next week you're scheduling with Jessica. And then the third week you're scheduling, just to kind of see like, okay, who's the better fit. However, a phone consultation might help you weed that out faster. Please know that because this is a high time, like peak time for us, I know certain generations or certain people have preferences with phone calls versus emails. Sometimes email is better. If you respond to the web form, it comes directly to me, for example. If you respond to email, it comes directly to me or the office manager. So we're able to see and respond in writing in the order that it came. When you call, what happens I can only speak for me. What happens for me is you have options, to push through. You can leave a message. The message is transcribed and it comes to my email. But if you hang up and you get frustrated, well, yes, you called and I have a missed call, but I'm in session 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm done at 7 p.m. I'm checking voicemails. Well, I'm not going to call you during your dinner hour, or I'm so exhausted, I might not call you back until the next day. And then you're mad at me. So I just want to give people that industry feedback that, it's not like corporate where our phone is sitting right here and we have the screens up and whatnot. We're constantly in session or aiding our clients or doing collaborative work. Or for me, I'm supervising and overseeing and training. And so while it is simple to call someone back, it's not as simple in our field as it seems. So just give us some grace, and please follow the pipelines that people have set forth, but definitely email for me is the best way to contact because I will respond. However, this is my last event of 2021. I will be going on hibernation mode and I'll return to the office on January 3rd.
Cannot wait to put up that away message.
Yes. As soon as the office manager, he's working and he'll feel through things, but it's been a hard year, and the phones are ringing, the emails are coming, but we have to take breaks too, and we do take more breaks than just say the end of the year. But this is just a normal break that comes for me. So I know sometimes people feel slighted by that as well. That myself and many colleagues are on some sort of hiatus at this time, and we're just regrouping. We'll be back to do the good work, I promise. So thank you so much. That's all I have, and I can stop sharing the screen.
That was an amazing presentation. Thank you so much. And another resource that I just found that I was happy that I found, because I'm one of those people that's always like drumming up work for themselves when they're bored. I'm always like, I'm gonna write about this. I'm gonna go tell my editor, do you want something about this? Yes. And then the next thing I know, I'm like, oh, I have to turn in like 4 things, and I want to do good work for the August Wilson African American Cultural Center, and want to do well in my PhD. And my mom is like, stop. So the NAP ministry on Instagram is an organization that just gives workshops and information about rest as a liberatory practice for Black people and people of color. And they have workshops on how to rest. They have workshops on how to take a quick nap. And I never thought that I would need to be retrained on how to take a nap and to rest. But I think it's something that we lose. It's that magic space we have as children where it's nap time, right? Yes. That as we get older, it's just not integrated into our everyday. But one of my questions, and it goes back to that image you had of the woman with all these questions coming at her. I think one thing that happens in situations like that is that you freeze and you're not quite sure how it's appropriate to respond, where you're like, well, if I respond too harshly, will everyone start fighting? Or if I don't respond at all, what does that mean for me? So how does a person know when to push, when to pull, when to confront, and when to drop? What's a strategy you can suggest for centering yourself in a high pressure moment like that, and perhaps circling back later with a different response? Because I think people feel expected to, as strong Black women, we're expected to say something right away. And sometimes if we're a younger Black woman, you're expected to just not say anything, especially if it's to an elder. So how do you know when and how to respond, or what's a tactic we can use to center to help us decide how we want to respond?
That's a great question. So, I think it's, and this is not just a split second deduction that goes on here. This is probably a bit of processing, but it's almost like in the positioning of the question that's being thrown at you, do you view yourself in the place of a child, or how small do you view yourself when this question is being asked? And then if you feel that you're in the place, you're cast into the place of a child, a 5, 7, or 8-year-old, maybe you need to revisit why you feel so small in that regard before you answer. Because I feel like if you answer, again, your self-esteem is being questioned, you're being belittled in a way, and then you may run, like you said, you may withdraw, you may pull back, but then nothing ever comes from that. So then you get to that was Thanksgiving, then you get to Christmas dinner, and then here it comes again, and then you get to New Year's or watch night service, and then you get to Easter, and then it just keeps going. So I think some of the things that I've seen effective in the past is, I'm surprised that you feel comfortable asking me that question right now. Now that can come off, depending on your tone, that can come off a bit harsh depending on who you're speaking to. But it can provide a little bit of levity, because the other person might laugh it off and be like, oh shoot, like I shouldn't have, said that or asked that. I've heard people say, this isn't the best time or place for this conversation. Let's pick this up tomorrow, or when we're, after mix, because sometimes it's mixed company, you have guests there, but, after company leaves, when we're doing dishes, we can talk about it then. And then, sometimes you get a perfect divine intervention where the younger cousin runs through, or someone drops and breaks a glass, or, something like that. And then it takes the attention off of you and you don't have to respond. But I do like your point in that we're assumed that we just have this answer automatically, and we have to give this hefty answer and response, or depending on who's asking it, we have to give the response because it's respectful if we answer and disrespectful if we don't. And so, you can say like, hey, I'm not ready to answer this question right now, or not here and not now. And so, some of the things that happen to me, I'm a therapist. I'm responsible for 132 people at the end of the day. And so I was in the store 2 days ago, and a woman had turned around in line to like talk to me, which was odd. But I said, okay, I humored it. But the conversation kind of evolved or devolved into certain things. And she said, oh, well, you're walking around and you just look so aloof. And I was like, that's an interesting observation, masked up, you can only see my eyes, you can't see my countenance. And I said, oh, well, I'm off today. I'm just running errands. I'm trying to stay out the way. But part of me was like, should I tell her that I'm a therapist and I'm just tired? Or will that open up a can of worms? Because then a lot of times when people hear that, they're like, oh, well, are you therapizing me? Are you diagnosing me? Or, well, if let me tell you about my story and get free therapy while I'm in line. And so I withheld, I didn't say anything. And I just let her observe me or whatever she thought she saw of me. And I just said, oh, and she said, oh, well, you should just be jumping for joy that you're off today. And I was like, I'm not unhappy. Right. And so that's kind of like asking a woman to smile just because she's not smiling. So just because I might, have like RBF or whatever it appears to you, it doesn't mean that I'm not enthusiastic about life. I'm very, very excited that I woke up this morning. So it was just odd. So sometimes you get those types of communication where people just put their stuff on you or project on you or what have you, or just make assumptions. And it's could be a purely wrong assumption. And so how do you kind of play it off to diffuse it? Because of course I didn't want to be out of character and disrespectful to a total stranger. I don't know what caused her to say that to me. But it wasn't accurate. And so yeah, just be mindful. And if you need an escape plan for my people with that deal with anxiety or are nervous about just who's there, have an escape plan. If you don't have a vehicle, then position yourself so you can take a walk around the block, or phone a friend, call someone, step out in the backyard or in a back bedroom and call a friend to kind of talk you through how you're feeling. Offer to do the dishes or offer to do something that separates you from the activating event and or what we call trigger. So that also could be an option too.
And then my last question, and we only have 3 minutes, and it can possibly be a big question. Sometimes people are so frustrated with trying to find a therapist that they need a break. And sometimes people don't know when they're going to have the money or the resources to go to a therapist. I know that there are people in my life that know that there's therapy available during the daytime hours as far as group and social workers and stuff like that, but they have to work. So they're not in a position to go before 5 p.m. to group. And so what are 4 things that you can do to help yourself bridge the gap between being able to speak to a professional and taking care of yourself?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I'm going to say that the first thing is I see people in the evening, the average American, and I feel you on that. That's exactly why I do toward the evening, because no, it's not fair that if you have to work, you can't make group before 5. So that's 1. 2 is, really, really take care of yourself, understand what your triggers are. If you can't avoid them, come up with a plan to cohabitate if that's an option. So like say if your boss is antagonistic, but obviously you have to work, find ways to keep him or her or they boxed in to your box where you control your time and you control your response to them as best that you can. That can include answering emails at certain times, not answering the phone after a certain hour, making your copies, during when they're at lunch, whatever that type, what that could possibly be if you're in the office. Cutting your work phone off at 5:01 if it's not expected of you. It's not if you're not on call or upper management, don't pick up the phone. 3, definitely do all the other things. So like, eat well, sleep, laugh, please laugh, even if you have laugh lines or laughter is is the best medicine. Finding humor and joy in things. If you can be around small children, they are great at producing that type of laughter because they just see the world so differently than we do. They're not tainted with what we know as adults. Don't grow up, it's a trap. Adulting is a trap.
Adulting is a trap. We need a t-shirt that says adulting is a trap.
Yes. I was like, I remember being in 5th grade sitting on the curb eating Skittles talking about when I grow up, and I'm like, oh, I'm grown now. So, oh man. But I would say like make sure you're taking care of your health. So nothing is ever too small. So as Black women in the medical model, we're assumed that our pain tolerance is higher, or we can be poked and prodded like Henrietta Lacks and without our consent. If you don't feel well in any way, shape, or form, get it checked out, but make sure your providers are listening to you. And if they're not listening to you, have them note it and chart it, but then go find someone else and ask for recommendations from loved ones, who they go see and why they love them and why they like them. And sometimes it might be worth the 30-40 minute drive versus the person 5 minutes away that doesn't listen to you. Something that I tell my clients to do with their physicians is take a 4x6 or 3x5 index card and write down all your questions or symptoms that you're experiencing. So when you go in, you hand the doctor and or the triage nurse the index card, and she or they may be able to get to say like 2 or 3 of your questions because the visits are never that long. But the hope is they then pass it to their main nurse to follow up and respond to the rest, so that you get the answer in your portal or you get a call back, or they check on you, in the next couple of days if it's something that could progress, to say like, hey, Mrs. So-and-so, hey, Mr. So-and-so, are you okay? And so for my clients who have done that, I do it myself as well, but for my clients who have done that, they said that's been the best thing for them because now they're getting more open and fluid communication. So they do feel better that they have someone who is going the extra mile to do the research or to fill the prescription for them, or to understand why they had that symptom and what about their environment or schedule changed. And so that's great. But definitely, emails are better if you can't get in contact with the therapist. Not all therapists are restricted to before 5 a.m. I'm, I guess, non-traditional in that way, but if I'm working for you to support you, then I need to hold hours after you get off work. And then, take care of yourself in all the other domains the best way that you can. And, remember to breathe, smile, and just count your blessings and gratitude.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being with us again. You should probably expect me at the end of the next year as well. And I hope everybody, really, I think this conversation is like so important. And every time we have this conversation is very different than the last conversation, because people are sometimes scared to even look for resources because it's frightening what they may find. And they're not sure what the experience is going to be like. So having someone as experienced and empathetic and compassionate and intelligent as you to give the PowerPoint and say all the things is a huge help. So I hope everyone that joined us was able to take something away. I'm going to immediately go after we sign off and post the screenshot so that way you can have the resources, and I'll kind of at the NAP ministry. And if there are any questions, look up Psych Your Mind on Facebook. Go to the website, the portal, get in touch with Crystal and her amazing team. And if anything, Therapy for Black Girls is amazing. I think that's where that's how I became referenced to Crystal as someone to come speak for us, as I was looking for, bright, brilliant minds to come talk about mental health in the Black community and mental health for Black women. And so Happy New Year. Happy holidays.
Thank you.
Everyone, just all you can do is your best. That's
Absolutely.
And thank you so much. Have a great night, everyone. Bye. Get removed from the live. Now it's the after party. Yes, exactly. Are you going to a party?
No, I'm gonna go wipe this off.
I am as well going to go wipe my face off.
I did this for y'all. No.
Oh, I am like very, very honored.
Yes. No, I have sweatpants on under on the bottom. This is just a shirt.
I have on like velour.
Oh, you took it back to middle school.
I know, right?
Oh.